Welcome to the Rocky and Meisty Show presented by Jew Stool. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Let's get right into it.
You're completely missing the boat, Amr. You're at the wrong dock.
I'd have to say this. If he's looking to go to a new team, the last thing he wants to do is be like, oh, I'm not. No, he's got to show up. And he's got to show the Browns, you just lost $250 million by not playing, by not giving me that money. You're going to give it to him? Go for it.
This is crazy. Tyreek killed one of the Dolphins for 5 hits. Second to position. Should we end the podcast now? I bet breaking news. Should we end it now? Now or later? Which one? I walk out right now. Position. Here first.
That's asinine. You're crazy.
He's got the full package.
No way. I don't care. No way. I can't even. It's hard to even look at you right now when you say something like that. That's crazy.
We want to talk about legacy-defining plays and legacy-defining throws. 13 seconds, and you get the ball into field goal range. That is absolutely insane.
I'm going to be frank with you guys. Mitch Trubisky is not a good NFL quarterback. He has never been.
Okay. And guess what? In basketball, you use a basketball. In football, you use a football.
All right, the playoff picture is starting to take form here in the NFL. We are at Week 17. 2 games to go, except for Monday Night Football, right? 1 game left in Week 16 tonight. Chargers, Colts. 2 weeks left to the season, Meisty. How are we feeling on this beautiful Monday?
Yeah, I mean, Ravens got the job done. Huntley 3-1 this season, so I'm taking it. We're riding with it. It's not my favorite thing to watch. It hasn't been pretty football, but it's winning and it's getting us into the playoffs. And everything that the Ravens needed to happen this week happened. You know, past years things haven't gone our way, so this year things went our way, and can't complain. That's where we're at.
Yeah, we'll certainly get more into that. Some interesting scenarios for the Ravens and several others in both the AFC and the NFC. We're going to run through every game starting from now. Of course, first, remember to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Yeah, I know the algorithm hasn't been great recently, but, we're trying our best over here. We're so caught up in the action that we just forget to do a podcast. You know what I'm saying? We just want to watch all the games. So let's get started with Thursday Night Football. Got some nice headlines we want to discuss as well. Obviously, Russell Wilson, bit of a hot take there. Is this the worst trade of all time? Meisty, here on the heels of Nathaniel Hackett getting fired. So we'll discuss that. We'll discuss Justin Jefferson, perhaps in the MVP race. So we'll get to all of that when we get to the respective games. I want to start with Thursday Night Football. The thing that pops out to you about this game, the Jaguars defeated the New York Jets 19-3. Zach Wilson got benched. And guess what, Meisty? Mike White wasn't even in the game. He wasn't even on the active roster in this game. He got benched for the 4th-string quarterback. For some reason, they decided to skip over the former Super Bowl MVP and Joe Flacco and put in the 4th string. I can't even remember his name off the top of my head, Meisty. But it's clear, Meisty, that the Jets are not going to go into next season with Zach Wilson under center. Even if he's only in his 2nd year, I think he's showed enough where you can't do that to the fans anymore. They have too good of a roster to waste this window, and I think it's it for Zach Wilson in New York, Meisty.
Yeah, so the question is, are they going to ride now with Mike White down the stretch? Are they going to go make a trade? They have some draft stock, so there's definitely trade value for them to go with, but the question is where do they go with? Are they really going to ride? Is Mike White franchise quarterback, Rocky? I don't know, Rocky. I don't know about that. That's something that's tough for me to sit here and say, yeah, he's the franchise quarterback.
Do you go into the draft pool this year? I mean, that's the other question, right? If you don't make the playoffs, I think the Jets' chances aren't great at this point, then you're going to get a top 15 pick. You could pick a quarterback this year, and it's clear that Zach Wilson is not the answer, right? So even if it's not Mike White, I think you're looking at that. Because if you don't draft a quarterback, Meisty, who else are you going with?
So the issue that I have is with this all is that they're currently right now ready to win. Their defense is ready to win. If you go and get a quarterback in the draft, and it's going to take him a couple years, the defense could already fall apart by then. You have to be ready. They have to go and trade for a quarterback. Maybe they go and trade for a guy like Lamar Jackson.
Maybe. I mean, the Jets still got a chance at the playoffs here. They're playing the Dolphins in Week 18. So if they win out, then they'll probably, I think they might still control their own destiny for the playoffs. I'm not exactly sure, being that they're playing the Dolphins. They're only 1 game behind them, and they beat them the first time. So the Jets still got a shot here down the stretch.
And the Jaguars are sitting here in the playoffs right now. Who would have thunk?
Unbelievable. Jaguars, week 18 is going to decide the division no matter what happens next week. So that will likely be Sunday Night Football. Probably won't have other implications. So that's exciting. You love to see the underdog try to make some strides here towards the end of the season. And another underdog on Saturday that was like really hot and trying to make the playoffs, the Lions. And they just got completely cooled off, losing 37-23 against the Panthers, Meisty. So Lions, hottest team in the NFC, winning, 5 out of 6. And all of a sudden, the Panthers come in here, and they're one win away from from nearly securing a division berth or a playoff berth. They control their own destiny to make the playoffs with 2 games left here. So Baker parts from the Panthers, and the head coach there has done a great job. Now the Panthers got a shot to make the playoffs, Meisty, and the Lions chances are looking not as good.
Yeah, the Lions are not a really good team on the road. Apparently, Dan Campbell sent the Panthers head coach flowers after the game, and when they asked him why, he said he ran 320 yards on us. That's a goddamn good job. So he's like, I had to send him flowers. But yeah, the Panthers used all their running backs pretty much, and they ran the ball down their throats. And the Lions on the road are not that good of a team. I mean, they played well, they did okay, but their defense is not good enough here. Yeah, and the Panthers, like you said, they control their own destiny. They play the Bucs, they play, I think, the Falcons, or they play the Saints, one of the other 2 division teams. So they control destinies, and that division is gonna come down to one of the craziest finishes. Also, I mean, it's another crazy finish down the stretch.
Absolutely. Deontay Foreman rushed for 165 yards and 21 carries. Chuba Hubbard ran for 125 yards. Those were 2 of the 3 leading rushers this week on the same team, Meisty, right? Both of them rushing for 7.9 yards per carry or more. Well, what?
What is this, the Ravens in 2019? Like,
literally, that's what it looked like. But since you mentioned it, and of course this has playoff implications as well, the Falcons at Ravens. So this was actually a big game for the Falcons. A lot of people don't realize, like, the Falcons got eliminated because they lost. If they would have won this game and then won the remaining 2 games, there's a good chance they could have won the division as well, being that all those teams are just not very high up there. So, Desmond Ridder comes in and shows a couple nice throws there. Drake London played really well, making some really nice grabs, but the Falcons just don't have enough firepower, especially without Kyle Pitts, even to beat a backup quarterback. Ravens pull it off, clinch the playoffs. And, there's what to be said, Meisty, that the Ravens perhaps should not win the division and take their chances against the Titans or Jaguars, Meisty.
No, you don't ever want to do that on purpose. You want to get that home field game, obviously. But, yeah, the Ravens also control their own destiny. Technically, down that Bengals game could decide, the division. So, this is big. This is big. This is where the season. This is where the season. If you didn't watch all year and you're like, I'm gonna start watching now, you are at a perfect time to start watching. This is when to start watching.
Yeah, things are tight both in the NFC, and the AFC, right? The AFC now all of a sudden has tightened up in the last couple of weeks. Now it's teams like the Steelers and the Jets and the Patriots all have the same record, right? The Chargers tonight can potentially sort of clinch the playoffs tonight, but if they win tonight and then beat the Rams next week, they'll clinch the playoffs. But then you have that 7th seed; it's completely up for grabs. Who would have thought that the Dolphins would go on a losing streak like this, Meisty? You know what I'm saying? So it's the most exciting time of the year. But with the Ravens, I think that again, it doesn't really matter what happens down the stretch here, right? They'll make the playoffs. That's you sort of like you looked at it from when Lamar Jackson got injured, about the same time of the year Lamar got injured last year, with about the same record, right? The only difference is this year they got to play the Falcons and the Steelers and the Broncos, right? And Tyler Huntley's good enough to beat bad teams. He wasn't quite good enough last year to beat great teams like the Packers and Rams, especially without Marlon Humphrey, and they had to go up against guys like Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams. So obviously the schedule worked in their favor, ended up giving double-digit wins and securing a playoff berth with 2 weeks left, Meisty.
Yeah, I mean, if you were told me that the Ravens would be 10-5 right now, I would be okay with it. I mean, it's not the best record. Not knowing that they blew 3 big leads this year, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite number to be looking at, but we could be sitting at the 1 seed right now with even 2 of those games. Well, even one of those games would be putting us closer to the 1 seed. So, but yeah, and like you said, the Falcons got eliminated. So goodbye. Yeah. See you next year.
Exactly. Always next year. See what they have next year. But the team that has the 1 seed right now is actually the Buffalo Bills. They demolished
by the way,
the Bears. 35-15.
Drake London.
Well,
he's sick. He's sick.
You completely messed up my transition. Unbelievable.
He's so good. I
already mentioned Drake London, and you still messed up my transition.
I had to just say it again, dude. He's so good.
Rocky's roll call? I forgot Rocky's roll call. We still have to do Rocky's roll call at the end of the thing. So will Drake London get Rocky's roll call? No, but I agree with you, Meisty, completely. Drake London made 3 or 4 contested catches this game where you're like, whoa, did he actually catch? Like, they had to review, I think 2 or 3 of his catches, they went to the booth. 1 or 2 of them may have even been overturned, and the refs called it incomplete at first, right? So he was just out there absolutely balling, pretty much keeping the Falcons in this game. Yeah, no doubt about it. But as I was saying, the Bills, currently with the number 1 seed, if they win out, they'll secure that number 1 seed in the AFC, 35-13 defeating the Chicago Bears and being able to contain Justin Fields. I mean, no team was able to do it like the Bills did it this week. So the Bills, all of a sudden, we sort of discounted them as the number 1 seed because we thought, well, the Chiefs, the Bengals, since they beat both the Chiefs, and now they have an opportunity to beat the Bills next week. But the Bills just got to win the last 2 games, and the road to the Super Bowl in the AFC runs through Buffalo, Meisty. So that's a pretty scary proposition. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
So the Bills beat the Bears 35-13. The Saints beat the Browns 17-10. Still a chance to win the division, being that it's so bad. It's unbelievable at 6-9 that all these teams still have a chance to win the division, despite the Bucks pulling out that crazy. I don't know what the Saints need to win the division at this point. I'm assuming
the Saints need a win out, obviously, and they need the Panthers to lose
win next week, and then both the Bucks and the Panthers to lose the last
Correct.
week. Right.
And
okay.
So it's near impossible, but possible. The Browns also are looking. I mean, they're the same way everyone lost this last week. The Browns are looking, at a win to try to sneak themselves in the playoffs. Possibly.
No, the Browns are eliminated.
Have they been? Oh, they eliminated this past week.
Yeah, the Browns are now 6-9, and you're going to need at least 9 wins to get into the playoffs over there in the AFC. So I mean, there are scenarios which teams can win 8 games, but not the Browns due to tiebreakers. So the playoff scenarios also get very interesting at this point.
Going back, the Bills, they're looking at the 1 seed right now.
That's what I was saying. I was saying that they just have to win the last 2 games, and then they'll secure the 1 seed. It's them and the Chiefs. The Chiefs beat.
The Bears are constantly losing out on purpose, I feel like.
Yeah, the Bears will get the number 2 overall pick probably at this point. And it seems like the Texans. I mean, the Texans will get the 2 seed. And it's interesting, actually. I mean, we'll get there in a second, but the Chiefs beat the Seahawks 24-10. Now, the Seahawks are jumping up and down because the Broncos lost yesterday, means that the Broncos now have the number 3 overall pick, which obviously goes to the Seahawks via the Russell Wilson trade. So that has implications for them. And the Seahawks still have a chance at the playoffs, albeit it's not great now that they lost to the Chiefs. The Chiefs competing for that number 1 seed. The Chiefs' road is very simple. Win out, Bills need to lose 1. That's all it is, right? And the Bills are playing the Bengals on Monday night next week, so that can certainly happen. Who are they playing week 18? It's probably the Jets, right? I assume they're playing the Jets. The Bills.
The Bills are playing. I believe you're right. It's the Jets in week.
Playing the Jets, right? Because the Dolphins are playing the Patriots in the last week of the season. So that's it. All the Chiefs need to do is win 2, and then the Bills can, they've been hot. They definitely due for a loss here. So both the Chiefs and Bills have good chances at the number 1 seed. And heck, the Bengals beat the Patriots 22-18. What a crazy game! And they have a chance. They have a chance at the number 1 seed.
How come the Bills Bengals game isn't being flexed this week? I know it.
Yeah. Bills Bengals. They can't flex Monday night.
Oh, it's Monday night. That's the greatest Monday night football game I've ever heard of.
Yeah, and it's perfect timing. It's for the number 1 seed on the line, AFC North on the line for the Bengals. I mean, there's a lot on the line here for in Monday night. But the other thing is, Meisty, you brought up an interesting point. Ravens Steelers should not get Sunday Night Football, especially because Lamar probably won't play next week. I mean, that's what it sounds like, no?
Even so, if you look at next week's schedule, right? Overall,
Packers, I'm loving that game. I'd be way more excited. If I was a Ravens fan, I'd be way more excited for that.
For what?
For Vikings-Packers. The Packers, all of a sudden, they win the last 2 games. A good chance they'll make the playoffs.
Yeah. But I'm not. Yeah, but you're talking Ravens-Steelers is a game of
against Huntley. I mean, this is not Ray Lewis and Joe Flacco and Big Ben anymore. I mean, we're talking about Pickett versus Huntley. Who is it? Oh my gosh! Because we're Ravens fans, so we remember the old days with the Ravens and Steelers rivalries. But the non-Ravens fans were going nuts over this flex. They're like, What? Ravens? They have people have no interest in watching this. It's just a very interesting. You also have there was 2 other games where I was looking at last week, which with way more playoff implications. The Steelers.
First of all, people do want to see the next greatest receiver of all time, and George Pickens. All right,
They just saw him on Saturday night.
Okay, but you know what? George Pickens is the next greatest receiver of all time, and that's why people want to see him. George Pickens is going to get the lights will be on him. The world will be watching George Pickens, and he's going to tear up the Ravens. Not win the game, of course, because the Ravens can't lose. But George Pickens is that guy. So let's see.
Panthers Bucks is way more important. That is for the division. That game is sitting there at 10 a.m. or it's at Pacific time, whatever. You 1 o'clock. Panthers Bucks is way more important. The Steelers need to win both games and then get a lot of help to make the playoffs. I mean, it's not really doesn't mean much for them. And the Ravens already clinched the playoffs. It's not really it's just a matter of seeding. So I mean, Panthers Bucks for both of them is like an elimination game, pretty much. It's huge.
You really want to see? You're going to sit there and say you rather see not as a Ravens fan. As a football fan, you rather see Panthers Bucks than Ravens Steelers?
Yeah, well, I don't want to watch Pickett versus Huntley. It's gonna be a boring game. The first time Pickett played versus Huntley, it was very boring. The first Ravens Steelers game was very boring.
The Bucks are the most boring team. They don't play for 3.5 quarters, and then Brady's like,
so the next best thing, the next best thing after not being boring is playoff implication, and this one doesn't have much of it. The Ravens already clinched. The Steelers are close to done. So what I don't understand and in week 17 you want something that has a lot on the line, like the Panthers Bucks, or like even the Dolphins Patriots. Whoever loses that game is done, completely done, right? Whoever wins that game has a chance in week 17 to make the playoffs.
So the Dolphins I think ran out of primetime games.
Is that a thing?
I think it is a thing. They play like too many times or something.
Okay, that makes sense. Even Jets Seahawks has way more on the line than the Ravens Steelers. I don't understand Ravens Steelers. Anyway, I'll be watching Red Zone earlier anyway, so I don't mind.
Exactly. You know what? I love when the Ravens get to play Sunday night. I don't like when they play Thursday night or Monday night. I like Sunday night because Sunday night you get a full day of Red Zone and your team hasn't played yet and everything else. You know what you need. I mean, you need to win either way. You always have to just go out and win. But you get a full day of Red Zone, and then you get to watch your team go out and hopefully win on a Sunday night. Me and Morty will be in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville. Oh, perfect segue into the next game. Texans versus Titans. Texans beat the Titans 19-14. A bit of a shocker, right? Malik Willis started this game, and the offense obviously looks different. Well, you say what you want about Ryan Tannehill, but he's a solid NFL quarterback, right? Malik Willis has not shown that in a couple outings that he's had this game. So they lose to the worst team in football, team that's been playing hard as of late. Brought the Chiefs to overtime, came down to the wire against the Cowboys. So the Titans are all of a sudden playing hard, all of a sudden a competitive team. But what this loss does for the Titans, Meisty, is it pretty much makes Week 17 irrelevant for both the Jaguars and the Titans. Because whatever happens, even if one wins, one loses, they both lose, they both win, it doesn't make a difference. Week 18 is going to be the deciding factor. So most likely Jaguars versus Titans will probably be Sunday Night Football in Week 18, Meisty. But Titans falling apart a little here down the stretch, and I don't think we're so surprised about that.
Yeah, there happens to be. There are, by the way, I wouldn't be shocked if Jaguars Titans isn't Sunday Night Football. I was doing in the playoff machine. I forgot what other game there was, but there is another game that's like way better than the Jaguars Titans game. That would be Week 18 Sunday Night Football. We have to play in the playoff machine and really look into it. But where was I saying with it? That Texans. If I'm a Texans fan, by the way, I mean it's on the up. You have do you know how many draft picks they get? There's all these draft picks. They get to have the Bryce Young. They get Bryce Young in the draft. And they're playing competitive football, but they're losing. So now they just have to get that guy that brings them over that hump. And a guy like Bryce Young, hopefully with other draft picks and other things and the right coaching staff and whatever changes is needed there, they have a bright future.
I'll tell you why the Jaguars Titans I think will be Sunday Night Football, because they generally put a game Sunday Night Football that doesn't have implications outside of the game itself, outside of the two teams playing. So Jaguars Titans will likely not have wild card implications or anything. It's very simple.
There's one other game like that.
I don't think there's any other games that has zero playoff implications outside of the game itself. I'm looking at the schedule right now. I mean, all these things, like, for example, Bills, Patriots. Bills are going to be dependent on the Chiefs and the Bengals, right? Jets, Dolphins. Jets, Dolphins are going to be dependent on the Chargers and the Steelers, all these other teams, right? So I don't really think there's any other games where it's like just winning in, nothing else matters. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I think that'll end up being Sunday Night Football. Next game let's discuss here is the Niners defeating the Commanders 37-20. Niners just on fire over here, right? I mean, not gonna lie, Meisty, you already hit your over, right? The over under for. By the way, that's something I want to do. I want to look because before the season we chose the over unders for each team, the win total. I want to see what our records would be if we guessing them correctly. I guessed the Steelers to win exactly 7 games. Guess how many wins they have with 2 weeks left of the season, guys?
6.
7.
Oh.
So they need to lose the last 2. Anyway, so the Niners are 11-4. The over/under was 10. They're already over at 11-4. One of the hottest teams in football. I think that, people are probably going to say Niners are the biggest threat to the Eagles, Morty. This is it. The Niners are the biggest threat, even with Brock Purdy under center. So even if Jimmy G doesn't come back and Brock Purdy remains under center, so many playmakers there. You can do so many different things. I mean, you have 5 players on the team that are versatile and can do two separate things, right? You have a guy like Kyle Juszczyk who can sort of block and go run as a tight end and be a running back. You have Deebo Samuel, obviously receiving running back. McCaffrey, same thing. You have Brandon Ayuk's a very versatile type of receiver. George Kittle up the middle. So you have so many different weapons there, and they could definitely compete for the NFC title.
They have so many injuries too. If they have so many injuries, if like they had like some of these positional players back, it would be a very dangerous team. And they are the only threat to the Eagles now. And it's going to be very, very, very exciting with the 49ers down the stretch. I don't really like the 49ers. I think it's like out of any team that doesn't have to do with the Ravens, I just hate the 49ers. They just bother me as a team. I think they have like a bad franchise. They have a bad fan. I don't like their fans. If you're a fan of the 49ers and you're listening to this, I don't like you.
Second most Super Bowls of all time. 49ers.
I don't know. That's not my problem. They had one guy. They had the best guy of all time. They had the second best receiver of all time on their team.
Exactly. Credit to them for having that guy. They happen to have had that guy. I wouldn't mind if that guy was on the Ravens right now. Probably make the Ravens Super Bowl contenders. They had freaking Jerry Rice right now. Probably make anyone a Super Bowl contender, to be honest. But especially in today's NFL. Can you imagine Jerry Rice in today's NFL? The passing game of today's league? Oh,
he would tear it up.
Tear it up. That'd be exciting to watch. On the other hand, the Commanders still have playoff hopes at 7-1. Their path is also simple. Win the last 2 games and they're in. If they lose, then they open the door for teams like the Seahawks and the Lions and the Packers. With that tie, there's no real tiebreaker scenario. So if they lose and any of those other teams win the last 2, they'll be behind them. So Commanders still got a shot here. Taylor Heineke chucking balls up for Terry McLaurin. It's been working, but will it work down the stretch here, Meisty? Not so sure about that. So let's hope for the Commanders' sake. It'll be quite fun to see them in the playoffs. Just
I don't know I don't know if you would rather see the Lions or the Commanders. Who would it be?
Sure, the NFC could be a little more exciting than we think, right? Let's say the Packers sneak in there, right? Like get that last seed somehow. The Giants are not such an exciting team. Like if somehow the Giants would go out, then you'd have like the Packers, Lions, and Cowboys as the wild cards. It's like, it makes for exciting matchups. Either way, it's looking like right now, Bucks Cowboys is going to be the first round matchup, which is just hilarious. Brady against the Cowboys, but I'm looking forward to that already, Meisty. I'm really looking forward to that.
And something that like people don't understand is like we saw when the Seahawks went 7-9 and won the division, and then ended up beating the Saints in the first round of the playoffs, right? It was very exciting. And then they didn't win the second round. I think they got crushed or whatever it was. But people don't realize that these when teams that aren't so good, but they're exciting teams, there's a reason why they made the playoffs. They're exciting. They get in at the wild card. When you make the wild card spot too, you do get. I think it's a bigger momentum going into the playoffs than if you won the division. Even if you won the division in week 18, okay, so you won the division, but going into the playoffs, you are the wild card. Like because think about it, there's never like a time where the wild card race is not like this team, that team, this team. We need these teams to win. This team to like. It's always a thing. There's always There's a reason why the playoff machine is there, and so for me, it's like the NFC could be really exciting. You could have a lot of really exciting teams play in this one. I hope it's not the Giants.
He's right. The Giants are the only team that like wouldn't be so intriguing, but the Packers, Lions, all these teams are very intriguing. Even the Commanders, it's an intriguing storyline. You remember that when were they the Redskins or the football team at that point? I don't remember when they played the Bucks in the first round, and they were obviously underdogs. They sort of snuck in a bad division. The NFC North, the NFC East rather that year was the worst division in football, and they almost beat the Bucks. They lost by one possession, so that was a very fun game as well. Now, moving on to the other game in the NFC East, the Eagles losing to the Cowboys 40-34. Gardner Minshew almost pulled it off. Was a couple turnovers in there, and it was a very exciting and entertaining game, back and forth game. Dak Prescott's been playing pretty well, so I think the Cowboys are also making a late surge. They have the third best record in the NFC right now, tied with the Niners. They'll probably be staying there at that fifth seed just because the Eagles are playing the Saints and the Giants, I believe, in Week 18. So they just need to win one more game to clinch that number one seed. They have the tiebreaker with the Vikings. It's very simple for the Eagles. So this probably doesn't have too many playoff implications. I think both the Eagles and Cowboys are staying right where they are. But it's convincing. The Cowboys are probably going to have to run up against the Eagles at some point in the playoffs, and they need to prove themselves that they can beat them. So this is their beating. Yeah. I'll be with the backup.
Yeah, without Jalen Hurts, it's silly. And last time they played each other, Dak Prescott was out, so they swap in the Steelers. But hey, you know what? We'll finally get the Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts. Hopefully, we'll get that matchup in the playoffs. And in Philly, I think it'll be a fantastic game.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'm gonna be honest. If Tom Brady beats the Bucs and goes to Philly, and I like Tom Brady going up against, because it's just Tom Brady in the playoffs, my guy. I'm praying that Tom Brady is not in the playoffs, because then he there's just no well, you can't bet against Tom Brady, right? You just can't be betting.
But the Bucs it just looks so bad this year, Mike.
I know you can't bet, but Tom Brady in the playoffs, you're gonna pick against Brady in the playoffs.
You're right. My golden rules don't bet against Brady, but it's not Brady. It's not Brady. It's Brady had to get the ball out in under 1.8 seconds. I think it was 1.79 seconds yesterday against the Cardinals. That is so quick. You're not even letting the routes develop for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, right? What's Mike Evans' strength? Mike Evans' strength is win at the catch point. Sort of let him muscle over the DB and let him, make a couple contested catches. There's not enough time. The Bucs offensive line is so banged up. Brady's getting the ball out so quickly. There's not enough time for Mike Evans to do Mike Evans things. So even though they have playmakers there, the offensive line and the scheme is not allowing those playmakers to run their routes and get into their spots. It just doesn't look good. Despite all that, the Bucs are in the worst division in football and will probably make the playoffs. But the Bucs just don't look good. They look out of sync. So you're going to tell me it's going to fall back into play?
Like you said, they still have to beat the Panthers this week, and
it's not over. It ain't over yet. It ain't over, baby. Meanwhile, the Steelers keep their playoff chances alive with a 13-10 win over the Raiders. The Steelers need a lot of help. They need to win the last two games, and then they need the Dolphins to lose 2 games, and then they need either the Dolphins or the Chargers to lose 2 games. Then they need the Jets to lose because they don't have the tiebreaker against the Jets or the Patriots. Steelers need a lot to go their way. Obviously, winning the last 2 games is the first order of business. The first order of business was going ahead and beating the Raiders 13-10. Kenny Pickett, man, coming through. 2-minute drill. George Pickens, your man. Game-winning touchdown. There it is. Steelers got a shot. Nice, he's fired up, man. George Pickens getting the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, he's my man. I'm so upset that he's not on the Ravens. I mean, he's my man. George Pickens is he's that guy. I don't know how to explain it more than that. If you understand that guy, he's that guy. And it's crazy. The Raiders, we talked about it before the season. This division was going to be that good, and I mean the division was good, but not that good. And you had the Chiefs who are that good and who make the division look good. And the Chargers are always in every single game they play. It's a good game always. Right? The Chargers are always constantly playing good football. The Raiders are always close, but they just lose every game. It's disaster. The Raiders. I mean, the Raiders might be the biggest letdown. If you at the end of the season, I think we'll do a podcast. I'm who is the biggest letdowns and stuff like that. I think that's definitely on the radar. Biggest letdown this season.
That'll be a great topic. But obviously, the other team in their division is an even bigger letdown with the Broncos. But as you and I both stated before the season, they were a bit overrated. Obviously, we already predicted them to get under 10 wins, but 4 wins. That I didn't see coming. I'll tell you that much. But we'll get to the Broncos in a second, of course. Now we'll move on to the Bucks at Cardinals. About Bucks beating the Cardinals 19-16. We've discussed this a lot. Obviously, we know that the NFC South is on the line next week. Bucks win, they're in. Very simple. The Panthers win, Now it opens the door for them to have a win-and-in situation in Week 18. It also opens the door for the Saints. Then you got some interesting stuff here, Micey, right? Panthers win next week, and you got a lot of scenarios. A lot of things open on the floor here.
I'm very disappointed in the Cardinals. I mean, I knew they were bad, and we know that they were bad, and we had high hopes for them. But even without D-Hop in the beginning, and even with Kyler Murray getting hurt at this point in the season, they're still 4-11, and that's a disappointment. And especially this year in a spot in a division that they could have been a wild card or even been winning division games. This is very disappointing for me. And I'm very disappointed in the Cardinals, and I think that's one of the worst. That's almost a Chris Davis-esque signing. Like, you signed on this guy that's has put up numbers, but nothing is special, and then you're getting nothing. You're getting no production out of him. He's just been a meme for the internet. So I don't know.
Yeah, speaking of one of the most disappointing teams of the season, the Cardinals are certainly one of those. 4-11 right now. Like you said, the division, the Seahawks were the ones that were like taking charge in that division up until a month and a half ago. Now the Niners all of a sudden, sort of expectedly, I mean, just even when they got Nuke back, I thought finally the offense started to look into sync. They won a couple games with Nuke back, just didn't come together like I thought it was. I was very high in the Cardinals before the season. Not looking good over there in Arizona, and they got a problem on their hands with that big contract. But okay, so let's go to the Packers-Dolphins 26-20. Also a huge game, right? I mean, number one, just starting on the Dolphins side for a second here. Tua is you see the big plays there, and obviously a lot of that is a result of Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Through 8-9 weeks of the season, this man was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in football. All of a sudden, they're on this losing streak now, and you're seeing a lot of the turnovers. Now, if you take the turnovers away, though you can't take the turnovers away, that's part of it. But if you take the turnovers away, he actually looks pretty good. Like his completion percentage, his passer rating, everything's really good. But the bad mistakes, the putting the ball in harm's way, that is in there for Tua. And heck, I'm a little nervous about the Dolphins heading into the playoffs here, Meisty. I was very high in them. I still wouldn't want to play him. You got two playmakers like that on the outside. But the way Tua's looking, a little flustered, I'm a little nervous if I'm a Dolphins fan here, Meisty.
Yeah, so another letdown team like the Dolphins. This is another letdown team. Mid-season letdown, if you want to call it. And I think that I'm trying to figure out the Dolphin situation. Like, do they continue to move on with Tua? And the Packers are making this big run. So this was a huge game for the Dolphins to pull a win out.
Huge.
Threw 3 interceptions on 3 straight drives, right, to end the game. I mean, what's the plan here? Are they going to trade for? Listen, I think the Ravens are trading Lamar Jackson. This is my theory. So, are the Dolphins looking to trade for him? I don't know. Maybe. I'm trying to figure out which team it is in my theory. So, if Lamar Jackson stays a Raven, I'm happy about it. I think it's so entertaining to watch him. So, but if someone's looking to trade for him also, and we could get something good for it, I'm for it.
Well, they'll probably franchise tag him this year, and then maybe after they franchise tag him, they'll have to find out what exactly to do with him, because then the team that they trade him will extend his contract, obviously. But that's a whole nother discussion. On the flip side of things, like you mentioned, the Packers now have a chance. Everything that they needed to happen went right for them, Micey, right? The Lions lost, the Seahawks, everyone lost, and the Commanders lost. So the Packers, again, their path to the playoffs is very simple. Win the last 2, Commanders lose one of the 2, and they're in. I believe that's all there is to it, because they are playing the Lions in Week 18. So, Micey, Aaron Rodgers somehow is still hanging in there. He's still hanging around, even though the Packers started off as one of the worst teams in football. Receiving core is horrible. All of a sudden, Christian Watson starts to make a couple plays. All of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers starts to move around in the pocket again. All of a sudden, the defense is much better. Jair Alexander going out on the post-game interview. Micey, did you see that interview? Jair Alexander.
That was really, really funny.
Hilarious. It's like the mind of a fan. You know what I'm saying? Like Tyreek Hill's really fast. Like the mind of a fan. If you didn't see the interview, go get the interview. I wish we had that prepared. We could have pulled up the interview in the middle of the podcast, because it was just fantastic.
Yeah, it was really funny.
It was really funny. But Alexander and Rasul Douglas is a great 1-2 punch over there in the secondary. Defense finally starting to come together.
He fast.
So the Packers got a chance here, Meisty. Packers got a chance.
Packers do have a chance here.
Packers got a chance. Okay, now let's discuss something that something maybe a little more in depth to the Giants losing
real
on
quick, something that you skipped over real quick. The Broncos and the Rams. I just want
Oh
to.
no, we'll get to that in a second. I didn't skip over.
Okay, I didn't hear.
Yeah.
I didn't hear.
Because I forgot the Giants Vikings in whatchamacallit in the last slate. So the Giants Vikings beating the Giants 27-24. I was watching the Ravens Falcons game, and then after that they showed the ending to the Vikings Giants game. So I was braced with that. I was lucky enough to watch the end of that game. That was ridiculous. Then you see Greg Joseph pulling off a Justin Tucker 61-yarder, and by the way, they showed that kick from the back end, and it had a good 4 more yards there, Meisty. Like, I'm thinking that kick's good from 65. Really? I mean, no? Did you see that?
Maybe 2-3 yards. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember how close it was. Maybe 2.
I guess maybe my measurements aren't so great, but it looked like it had a good few yards, Meisty. Like when they showed that back angle, that was a heck of a kick.
Yeah, if it was Sunday Night Football, we would have known.
Right, then we would have had the good from whatever, exactly. So 27-24 Vikings just somehow seem to pull off these close games again. How much does this mean for the Vikings? I think it's just a matter of the 2 or 3 seed at this point with the Niners, unless the Eagles lose out. So obviously, I think that the Vikings just seem to continue to win close games, and Justin Jefferson balling out, Meisty. Absolutely balling out.
Obviously, I don't know if we want to talk about it now or talk about it later about Justin Jefferson and where he stands. I think that when you talk about an MVP, right? I think that something that you have to consider is this guy better than everyone else in his position, right? So is Patrick Mahomes really outplaying Joe Burrow this year? Is he really outplaying Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts overall this year? Not really. Not really. He's not even the 1 seed, right? Like, I mean, maybe now he is, but then if he doesn't get the 1 seed, right? Like, did he really outplay them? I don't know. But then you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, right? Who is literally, even on the other guy, the only other guy on that level is close to him is Tyreek Hill, and he's outplaying Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill is the best receiver in the league by a long shot when it comes to just pure speed, hands, just being able to make a playmaking ability. Justin Jefferson is outplaying him and putting up insane Randy Moss-esque numbers, and we're not going to consider him for an MVP. I mean, I don't like that the guys like every year it's some other quarterback, or randomly it goes to this guy because he led the league in sacks, or it's never these receivers who are doing. The only way these quarterbacks are successful are through these receivers. So all these quarterbacks, if not these receivers, who's making? Someone has to catch the ball. I think that we have to be more considerate, or consider more these wide receivers, guys like Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill, but Justin Jefferson more this year than any other year. I've never seen a receiver. I mean, the plays he's made, the games he's put on his back and won by just making insane plays. He's a game changer. If not for him, the Vikings are looking for the 1 pick in the draft this year.
If the award was best player in football, I completely agree with you. That Justin Jefferson should, in fact, not only be in that conversation, but be the front runner. But the award is MVP, and in today's NFL, there's just no one more valuable than a quarterback. I mean, by all metrics, when you look at value, value of great quarterback compared to average quarterback, the discrepancy is so big. When you have a great quarterback under center compared to having an average quarterback under center, it changes your entire team. Having a great receiver, as is evident by Devontae Adams, does not necessarily change your team. Necessarily. It can, but it does not necessarily change your team. So, there's plenty of teams that you've seen throughout the years that have had great wide receivers. Makes a huge difference, especially you got a pretty good quarterback out there, like the Vikings do with Kirk Cousins. But quarterback changes your entire team, right? As you see now this year, Tyreek Hill goes away from the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is that good that, granted they have the best tight end in the NFL, but, he's been able to get the ball to Juju Smith. He's been able to get the ball to McCole Hardman. He's been able to get all these different guys involved in all cylinders. Now, Pacheco with the running game has been getting going. Like, then you have a quarterback like that, and they have the best record in the AFC. So tied for the best record in the AFC. So if the award was best player in football, which, by the way, Meisty, it should be. It should be, because give these guys a fair playing field. I mean, by calling it MVP, you are excluding such a big population of the NFL. What about Aaron Donald? If the award was best player in the NFL, Aaron Donald would have won it one of these years already, at least one of these years, because he's always the best player in the NFL, pretty much every year.
Right. Well, no, he's probably the most. See, like that's like the most efficient. Like Aaron Donald's probably the most efficient player. Every single play he impacts the play. Right. Like what was the stat last year? I remember last year the stat was like he impacts 99% of the plays that he plays in, or something like that. Right. And that's insane. So to me, but like a guy like Justin Jefferson, like Kirk Cousins, right, isn't in the MVP talks. I mean, he is. He's actually does. There is odds for Kirk Cousins to technically a long shot, but Justin Jefferson is an MVP caliber player. Meanwhile, Kirk Cousins is nowhere near the leadership in the leaders. Why? Because Justin Jefferson is that much better. He's just like he. There's no like. It's sick. It's sick. He's so much better than anyone else right now in the league. I get so upset that it's not. Even if you want to call it MVP, it should go to the best player in the league.
It should go to the best player in the league. It should go to the best player in the league, but MVP by its very definition does not. It's the most valuable player. They should rename. I agree with you and I disagree with you. Meaning, I disagree with you that Justin Jefferson should not be the MVP, but I agree with you that he should be the best player in football, and the award should be the best player in football, in which case it should go to Justin Jefferson, in which case I sort of agree with you. But being that you're going to define it as MVP, I don't think you can give it to anyone other than a quarterback. There's just no one that even reaches even half of the value of a quarterback nowadays in terms of positional value. You just don't even get close to that, Meisty. That's my only problem with that. But in general, the way Justin Jefferson is dominating every other receiver this league, man is a beast. Man is an absolute beast.
A quick interjection here. Would you say that winning the Heisman in college is comparable to the MVP in the NFL?
Good question.
I think it's the hardest. It's harder than winning MVP because in college you're going up against thousands of players technically, or 100 other quarterbacks technically.
Position wise.
Yeah. So what do you mean position wise?
Oh, running backs get the Heisman. That would never happen again.
And wide receivers also get the Heisman.
And exactly. So
Devontae Smith won the Heisman.
It's not MVP necessarily.
Right. So you're going up against thousands of players. It's harder to win. I think it's harder to win the Heisman than people. A guy who wins multiple Heismans, people are like, "Wow, this guy won multiple Heismans." That's very impressive. It's not easy to win a multi Heisman. People win multi MVPs. Brady has 4 MVPs, and he probably would have had more. But like we just got used to Brady being Brady. That we did it. We had to stop giving it to him. Guys don't just double Heisman it and keep going. And they do play 2-3 years, right? You do have guys playing for 2, 3, 4 years in college. We had Johnny Manziel who won it as a rookie, and then that was it, right? Oh no, he did win it. I think
you're right. 2 Heismans is rare. 2 Heismans is rare.
Did Johnny Manziel double Heisman? I forget. Anyway,
did he?
I don't know, he won it as a rookie.
Many players have won MVP multiple times. Obviously, the amount of teams. Number one, there's more players on each roster in college. There's way more teams. Even if you only want to include Big Six colleges, there's still more teams. Way more teams, right? So it's like, yeah, that's a much more difficult thing to accomplish. But I hear your point, Meisty. Justin Jefferson's balling out this year. Special player. He's contributed remarkably to the Vikings' success, but it's also been simply just winning close games that they lost last year. Last year, they were in most of their games and simply blew them at the end. This year, it's been pulling those games off. Late game field goals, late game touchdowns. Pulling it off. Vikings are hot. See what they do in the playoffs, Meisty. That's an intriguing one. A lot of us think that the Vikings are probably not as good as their record indicates, right? But maybe they can make a run. The guy like Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. We'll see what happens there in the playoffs, Meisty. One game left. We'll talk about Justin Jefferson a little more soon, but one more game left that we've that happened yesterday. Broncos versus Rams, and I found out Trevor Sickham at PFF pointed out something hilarious. This game had remarkable implications in the draft, not for the two teams playing, because the Rams traded away their first-round pick, and the Broncos traded away their first-round picks. So the Rams, the Lions and the Seahawks are both watching this game very closely, because whoever lost this game kept that number 3 overall pick. So all of a sudden here, the Seahawks are number 1. They could still make the playoffs. Had a successful year. They've seen that they have a potential quarterback for the next couple of years in Geno Smith. And number 2, right? If the season ends today, would have a number 3 overall pick. But this just shows, Meisty, how bad this contract was. And the Broncos lost 51-14, a defense that has not allowed many points this season, but all of a sudden give up 51 to Baker Mayfield and the Rams, which is just unbelievable. But this just shows how bad this contract was. And dare I say, one of the worst in NFL history. Nathaniel Hackett gets fired after 15 games. Yes, breaking news that broke earlier today. But 15 games, and they were saying no way they're going to fire him. But what?
It took too long.
Exactly. I was going to say exactly. In the words of Meisty, what took them so long? So that is exactly my point here. I mean, if you look at the disaster that Russell Wilson has been, the decline, it was sort of 2020 Russell Wilson, was MVP, one of the best in the league. 2021, even before the injury, Meisty, was not as good. He had a passing grade. Let's just to compare, okay? His passing grade in 2020 was 88.7. His passing grade in 2021 was 70.7. His passing grade this year fell all the way to 63.6. 26th in the league amongst quarterbacks with qualifying quarterbacks, which is, again, if you're not counting 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, right? 26 out of 32. I mean, the guys had just only 19 big-time throws this year. The big-time throws haven't been there as much. As much as the Broncos' only strength this year has been like a couple big plays left and right, you're still seeing less big throws than you've seen, obviously, in Seattle with Lockett and those boys. So, obviously, this is one of the worst contracts in NFL history, Meisty. I mean, you signed that man to such a big contract. You are stuck with him for 5. I believe the contract does not even disperse until next year, Meisty. I mean, this was the remaining year. This year was the remaining year of his Seahawks contract. So unless Russell Wilson has a complete resurgence over here in 2023, this is a disaster going on in Denver. They have all this money locked up into him. Yeah, they're going to have to try to get a new coach that can fit with Russell Wilson because you can't draft a quarterback with that much money tied up into Russell Wilson. You just can't.
Bring on Pete Carroll.
I heard the whispers of Pete Carroll or the guy in the college guy, Riley. Lincoln
Not
Riley.
Pete Carroll. Not Rocky, not Pete Carroll. You're thinking the guy from the Saints.
Not Pete Carroll. No, Sean Payton.
Yeah,
We both got confused with Sean Payton. That was funny. Lincoln Riley was the other one. He's a very creative playmaker, so maybe they can get guys. Because on paper, there's nothing wrong with this team, Meisty. There's nothing wrong with this team on paper. It's a lot like the Bucs. I mean, their defense is playing shut down up until they ran up against the Chiefs the entire season. They were holding teams to 15 points or less, whatever it was. And then you have Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick might come back next year. You have all these playmakers. Maybe Javonte Williams will get him back next year. There's no reason this team shouldn't be good. There's no reason.
On the other side of the ball, from the Rams side, you have Baker who's playing lights out right now, and what do you do with him? Like, are you just gonna bench him and put Matthew Stafford back in? Are you gonna try to force Matthew Stafford to retire and keep Baker Mayfield as your starting quarterback? I mean, Sean McVay, I think with Baker Mayfield is the match made in heaven.
Yeah, I think that's how. I'm just looking up how many years Stafford has left in his contract. Because what if he only has 2 years left? No, 2 through 2026. They have a contract into 2026. So that means they still have 3 years left with Stafford. So yeah, I guess that's a bit of a problem there as well. But I mean, it's a good problem to have because Baker's not going to cost much. Like you'll probably give him for $15 million next year. No, I mean, I don't think there's going to be a huge market for him. I think it's been impressive.
No, it's not true. If he finishes the season playing the way he played the other night, there's a market for him. If I'm the 49ers, not the 49ers, I don't know. You know what the truth is? You have to be creative like Sean McVay did for a guy like Baker Mayfield. So,
but the teams that'll get high draft picks will pick a quarterback this year, being that there are several quarterbacks probably that'll be taken in the first round. And then the Rams don't have a high pick because they traded it away for Stafford. So that now belongs to the Lions. So, they're gonna probably pay a little more for Baker to try to have something that's a potential future in there because he's looked impressive there the 2 or 3 games that he's played.
I think they're aiming to trade Lamar Jackson and tank for Marvin Harrison Jr. for next season.
That would be fantastic. If they had Marvin Harrison Jr., forget about who the quarterback is. That would just be so cool. Although it would be even cooler if Marvin Harrison was just all of a sudden promoted to the NFL this year. That would be even cooler. And
they're trying, right? They're really trying to push for that heavy.
And then the Ravens will trade up. Why not? Trade away your next year's first round pick for Marvin Harrison. It's worth it. I'd do it. No?
I mean, he is the next big thing, right? I mean, he's a star.
Yeah, I agree.
If you haven't watched him, watch Marvin Harrison Jr. highlights. That man, that's an NFL ready player right there.
An absolute stud. So we still got the The Chargers Colts playing tonight, Meisty. Now, here's a scenario for you. If the Chargers lose, first of all, it opens the door for a lot of those 7 and 8 teams. The Jets and
Let's
the
not talk
Steelers,
about the
the
Chargers.
Patriots. Huh?
So I won't talk about the Chargers. I have too much money riding the Chargers winning tonight. We can't have the Chargers losing tonight.
Fascinating scenario for you, okay? Basically, the Ravens, if the Chargers win tonight, the Ravens didn't even need to win last night didn't even need to win on Saturday in order to clinch. They would have clinched with a loss. The Ravens basically needed the Titans to lose. They needed the Jets to lose. They needed the Patriots to lose. They needed the Raiders to lose. And they needed the Chargers to win and the Dolphins to lose. They needed all those 6 things happen. You hear this? One of the craziest parlays in NFL history if you would have bet on it. And 5 of the 6 have happened. Now, if the Chargers win, the Ravens wouldn't have even needed to win this week, and they would have clinched at 9 wins. Shows the AFC is not. It's a little more dicey than we think over there, right? That the Ravens would have clinched at 9, and it's very likely that 1, maybe even 2 teams will make it at 9, Meisty. So at the end of the day, the AFC, not as a result of the competition, maybe even because of the competition, that 9-win teams, maybe multiple ones, will make it there.
No, so if you're comparing the AFC to the NFC, right? The AFC, that there were the top half of the AFC was on a much better projection in the beginning of the season, and then from the top half, a lot of those teams took a collapse, and then a lot of the bad teams started coming up, and that's why now we're sitting in that spot. In the NFC, though, it was just these teams are just all bad teams, and then there's 2, maybe a 3rd team that's possible.
He has like intriguing teams, like the Packers and Lions. Like you're not looking at, or like the Bucks. Like you're not looking at them and you're like those scary teams, right? But the Bucks and Packers got the veteran Hall of Famers. You got the Lions with like up and coming Jared Goff, exciting offense. So you got like intriguing teams there, but not necessarily teams you're scared of as like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle and the Dolphins, or like Justin Herbert and the Chargers, or like like the Bills, Bengals, Ravens. You're not as scared of them per se.
Something that Jared Goff has is that he's been to the Super Bowl. He knows what, not that he wasn't carried by a defense, but he does know what it takes as a player, that mentality to, this is what you have to do as a quarterback to get to the Super Bowl.
Are you saying the Lions are going to make a Super Bowl run? Are you saying that right here on the podcast?
No.
Is that what I'm hearing?
No, definitely not.
Eyes raised? No? Okay. Lions are not making a Super Bowl run. I would like you to say that, just so that we can have that on record.
I will just allow the Lions to play in the Pro Bowl. That's just like they're not going to go, but like the Lions versus the NFL, the rest of the NFL. Dan Campbell coaching against all the other coaches, all the other players. Dan Campbell, put him up against them. Maybe like trade like Patrick Mahomes or something. I don't know. Give him something good. It's flag football this year, Rocky. You know that the Pro Bowl. Flag football.
What?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
They're playing flag this year. Yeah, because they have to start testing it out for the real NFL when they implement it.
We have to put that in the thing, Morty. That was a good corny joke over there. But anyway, that wraps up the slate. That wraps up the slate. But of course, we have one segment left, and that is one that we have not done in quite some time now. Let's get started with Rocky's roll call. And reminding everyone what that is exactly, basically one guy that absolutely balled out this week. This week, again, like I said, glaringly obvious, told the boys before, and we already brought him up on this podcast. We already talked about him at length. Justin freaking Jefferson. And, had we had more Rocky's roll calls this year, I probably wouldn't have chosen him because we would have chosen him too many times, right? Because this guy's just been a beast this season, but we haven't chosen him yet because we only had a few of these. Justin Jefferson, 12 receptions, 133 yards, and a touchdown, just consistently making contested catches. You saw this against the Bills in that crazy game, where it was like 6 or 7 of his catches, the probability of him the catch probability was under 50%. It was ridiculous. This man does not just run routes like you've never seen. This man doesn't just win at the catch point. This man doesn't just outrun everyone. He is making tough catches, contested catches left and right. It is unbelievable. He's a great all-around receiver. An interesting stat about Justin Jefferson. You talked about, Meisty, how much better he is than everyone else. Justin Jefferson this year has 174 targets, most targets in the league, but yet he has 123 receptions on 174 targets. Very efficient. Now, when you look at Devontae Adams, who has the second to most targets in the league, 160 targets. Only 88 receptions. So Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, has 14 less targets than Justin Jefferson, but 45 less receptions and nearly 500 less yards. Getting targeted almost the same amount, just a little less, and Justin Jefferson's production is through the roof. Not a bang on Devontae Adams by any stretch. Just to bring out the point of how dominant this guy has been. I mean, 8 touchdowns, over 117 yards per game, Meisty. This is ridiculous. The only other player who has his average over 100 yards per game is none other than Tyreek Hill. Other than that, 117.1 yards per game. This man is balling. He is so good. This is one of the funnest times I've had watching a wide receiver perform on the field, Meisty. So that's my Rockies roll call. You got anyone?
Yeah, I have 2 guys this week. One is TJ Hawkinson. He what do you have? 13 catches, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, just an absolute animal of a week for a tight end, going off, getting traded, going off there. But my real guy this week in that Rams win, Cam Akers, man. And like against a Broncos defense that's been very good this year. We can't let that. People are gonna, because of their record, people are gonna be like, oh, they're not so good. No, their defense was very good this year, and he ran for what? He had 23 attempts, 118 yards, 3 touchdowns. He caught 2 for 29. I mean, Cam Akers, man, is my Rockies roll call.
Cam Akers balled out, and one honorable mention, if we want to get some Ravens in there, Roquan Smith was fantastic. Second in tackles in the league this past week 16. There's no question his production since coming over from what team was he on before? Chicago, right? He was on Chicago.
Bears, yeah.
From Chicago has been remarkable. He's been way better on the Ravens. He's allowed Patrick Queen, who has now the 9th best pass rushing grade in the league since he's come to the league. Since he's come to the Ravens, he's had an 82.9 defensive grade. That would rank about 12th or 13th amongst all linebackers. So he's been nearly a top 10, top 15 linebacker in the league since he's come back. He doesn't miss tackles. He's a surefire guy. He's been covering tight ends nicely, something that the Ravens did not have prior to his arrival there. He's a great pass rusher. Yeah, I was going to say, this man had a lot of talent coming out of college, 8th overall pick out of Georgia, big SEC school. We all knew the talent that he had, but he's had an up-and-down career. But all of a sudden, the Ravens are very good at bringing talent out of linebackers, and that's exactly what they've done. He's allowed Patrick Queen to play his role. Ravens defense been doing great. Roquan Smith's the runner-up for me.
I mean, he was, before the Ravens traded for him, he was the tackle leader in the league. Not that that means much, but he was the leading tackler in the league, and then the Ravens traded for him. But where I really like him is I think that he's elevated Patrick Queen's game, where to the point where Patrick Queen is making tackles that he was missing before, and Patrick Queen's game has been, because I think that's lifted off a lot of weight from him to give it to Roquan, to let Roquan lead and make sure everything's going good, versus Patrick Queen, where now he can just do his job. I think that's very good for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. And he has 8 pressures since coming to the Ravens, so he's been good in pass rush. His coverage has been much better than whatever the Ravens have had this year at a linebacker. They've always struggled against tight ends because their linebackers were not able to cover, including Patrick Queen. But like you said, Patrick Queen's been able to play as well. It's been great over there. Defense is great. We'll see Lamar plays, how the offense comes into effect. But 2 weeks left, man. 2 weeks left. Week 17. Normally, it's so weird because normally when I see week 16, I'm used to it being like next week's the last week of the season, But that's it. 2 weeks left. It goes by so quickly. I mean, I know I always say this, but we're really at the end now. Like, in 3 weeks, we will be watching playoff football, Meisty.
I'm excited for that, honestly.
I'm excited for that, but you know what? No more red zone in 2 weeks, and then that just means that the NFL
I'm
is
sick
ending
and tired
down.
of red zone. I'm sick and tired of red zone's producers.
Sick and tired of red zone. You're not sick and tired of watching 8 games at once.
No, that I love.
Exactly. So red zone or no red zone. It's sad, NFL season winding down. Unfortunately, the NBA does not pique my interest anymore. So with that being said, I'm not. I don't know what I'll be doing.
Can I interest you in some NHL?
Hockey, I start watching the playoffs.
Rocky, I was on college basketball.
College basketball's good. College basketball's good. It's solid. I like it. We got some bowl games this week as well, and then we got the big playoff in college football this weekend. So it's coming up. Next month and a half. You're right. I shouldn't look forward. Let's just enjoy the present.
mention it. Coldest NFL week of the in history
Crazy.
overall. Like
Crazy.
on average of all games this past week, it was the average coldest week of the in NFL history.
Yeah, the commentators for the Dolphins game were like, yeah, we came to Miami. We're thinking, it's going to be in the 70s. We're going to walk down the boardwalk on the beach. We're going to relax on the sand. 46 degrees here in Miami. It's the coldest day in 3 years. It's like literally it was the coldest Christmas day in like 30 years or something in Miami. It was crazy. It's never in the 40s there during the day. And never. It's like very rare in Miami. In LA, it happens sometimes, but in Miami, it's rare. Because generally, it stays above 50. It doesn't even get to the 40s there at night, let alone during the day. So that was crazy, Meisty. And it was just, we know, I was on your side of the country this year. I mean, it was freezing. Goodness. Freezing. It was like, I felt, the wind chill was -5, -10 with the wind? Oh my gosh. Freezing. Anyway, we hope you guys are warm inside. If not, you like the cold, good for you. You do you. Anyway, we'll watch Chargers Colts tonight without a Manning cast. You'll have to suffer through that. But listen, watching Justin Herbert versus Nick Foles tonight should be pretty entertaining. I'm not going to lie. That's not a bad proposition. Like, it's been worse on Monday Night Football. It's been worse.
Could be worse.
Could be worse. All right, guys. That's it. So, week 16 in the books, week 17. What do you say?
So Morty has to give us a fun fact before we leave. Anyway. He's not listening.
Since when?
Put him on the spot.
When did this bit start?
You put him on the spot.
Ever since we've been doing previews, for as long as we've been doing previews, we've been Morty's random fact of the week.
Okay. You want a fact of the week?
Morty's random. It has to be Morty's random fact of the week, not Google's fact of the week.
This is not Google. Mason Crosby has passed Brett Favre for the most game played in Packers franchise history with 256.
That's a good one, Morty. You whipped that up just right now.
Happy?
Did you whip that up right now?
I have my sources.
That was impressive. That's wow.
Wow. How much we paying you, Morty?
Not enough.
Not enough. Definitely not enough.
Definitely not enough. Wow.
That was pretty good. All right, we'll have to give Morty put him on the spot a little more. We get some good content when we put him on the spot. That was very good, Meisty. I'm not very into putting you on the spot, but I guess here, listen, when you're assertive, good things happen. So, good job for you. But if that's the only fun fact you'll have, then we'll wrap it up. So, we got again 2 weeks left. 17-18 NFL playoffs coming down to the wire. Of course, remember to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, all those good buttons. Hit all those buttons, and come back next week, next time. We'll see you then.